What's going on, guys? We got Perth Pro Players team member Jason Stubbs here. Made an absolute banger of a deck. Everyone wanted to see the profile. Got top 4 at last week's local.
That's it.
This man was rocking. Let's have a look.
Your black Zen-Oh from, what is it, Draft Box 2?
I think
3 or something?
maybe.
No, X3. Draft Box 3.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely throw. I think it was the Ultimate Box, was it not?
Or maybe it was
I think it was the
Box.
Ultimate Box is when this came out,
Yeah, it's before
or
I
something
started
like that.
playing.
I can't remember exactly when it came out, but a long, long time ago.
Yeah. Absolutely terrible leader.
Explain what it does. I guess the restrictions are the main
Some
thing.
people may not have seen this leader before. So permanent, you can't include in this deck any cards that don't have Universe as part of their special trait. So extra cards, Unison cards, they have no special traits, so you can't run them at all because they don't include Universe. So you're restricted pretty much to battle cards and like reps of Universe 7 or something because it has the permanent to give it the special trait.
Yep.
It has a second permanent. Treat all cards with Universe as part of their trait as if they had no specified cost at all, which is very important to this deck.
Yep.
And then it has an attack auto. When this card attacks a leader card, place up 2 cards on top of the deck in a drop and then draw 1 card. So you can mill cards out to fuel your drop,
Yep.
which is slightly important on the backside. It's
This
the
is
standard
before
4 or less
burst.
awaken, so it's a untapped 2 leader.
Yep.
On the back, still got the permanent to ignore specified cost. When it attacks anything now, place up to 2 in the drop and then draw a card. And then activate main once per turn. You choose 10 cards in your drop, send them to the warp to force your opponent to discard 2. So it's a nice little discard 2 effect, which you usually resolve 1 or 2 times a match, depending on how much you've managed to mill.
Yep.
So we'll go into the deck. We'll start off with the 1 costs of the deck. We've got 4 copies of Master Roshi Universe 7. Obviously, you've got no extra cards in this deck, so you have to run Battle Card Negate, so Roshi's a pretty solid one.
Yep.
And he's a nice blue card, which is quite important for something we'll get into later. So we run 4 copies of Roshi. You could definitely run the yellow Roshi, you could run Mechacorps as well, but I'm just running 1 cost Roshi at the moment because it's nice and easy.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and you said like the blue count's the most important thing probably in the deck,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
With everything, so that's cool.
Next 1 drop we have is the red Piccolo Namekian Fortification. This is a relic from an older version of the deck list, so now you could probably run the Crit Cabba instead. If anyone looked at the deck link that I put up, you'll see I filled the sideboard with some other options that you can run instead, so I'd probably replace this with Cabba because it becomes searchable for the deck.
Yep.
For this card, when it attacks, you take a life and it restands against 10k. It can't attack again, but then it's in active mode, so it's there to help awaken further the next turn or something, or you can combo it off after. So it's quite a flexible card, and I quite like it a lot.
Sure.
And because the deck ignores specified cost, it's just a 1 cost.
Yep.
So there's nothing too bad with that one. Then we're starting to get into the more blue cards. We have Dr. Rhoda Powers Draw. It's a 1 cost draw card. It's not much more to it. It's just a blue 1 cost, and it's searchable because it's a U6, because we run U6 engine in this deck. So we have Dr. Rhoda in there, and he's just a nice little space filler that we got in one of the more recent spets.
Do you cycle through the deck much? I know you mill a lot, but do you draw a lot of cards or not really?
A little bit.
Yeah.
You end up playing with your drop area a lot more than you end up drawing cards.
Yep.
But there are cards that we'll draw.
Cool.
So we've got 3 copies of Basil. Everyone knows what Basil does these days.
Yeah.
You can only have 1 of them. On play, draw a card. If your opponent has 5 or more tapped any cards, it gains dual attack and 15k, so it's a 90k dual attack. It's a very strong card for 1. Helps bump up the yellows in the deck, and it's a 1 cost to play. So it's another lovely card for the deck. Now we start getting into the real bread and butter of the deck. We have 4 copies of Caulifla, the Bold Sister. Can't be carried by skills, so it's a nice little sticky 1-drop. Searches top 5 for any blue or yellow U6 card and adds them to your hands. So it's very helpful cycling through the deck. And then one of the most important cards in the deck is actually Kale, the Timid Sister. Similar permanent, can't be carried by effects, but then she adds 1 blue or yellow U6 from the drop area back to hand with any cost of 3 or more.
Yeah.
And that's really important because the leader will be milling cards, so you'll be able to grab your pieces back with this. It also ties in quite nicely with Cabba, Bonds of Universe 6. This is a card not many people will probably have seen. It's an old TP card.
Old promo.
It's very, very bad in every deck except for this deck. So when you play this card, if you have a U6 in your drop area, you can choose another card in your hand, discard it, and then you can play 1 blue or yellow non-Cabba U6 card from the drop area with any cost of 1. So if you have, you've already got a Kale or something in your drop, you can discard another card, and then when you play Cabba, you play Kale. And that's also why we have Rhoda in there, because he's a resummon if that's the only option you have.
Yep, it's not
Or
bad.
you can play Caulifla,
Go for a search.
But Cabba and Kale pair nicely as well, because then you can pitch a high cost U6 card as part of Cabba's cost.
Yep.
Play Kale and then just add that card straight back. So that's a nice little loop that you go. And the reason that we're playing these cards in particular all comes into your boy Hit in Cold Blood.
The beast.
Now this is the absolute bomb of the deck, and it has a very beautiful interaction with this leader. So this is a triple striker. It has a permanent, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1 for each of your battle cards that are both blue and or yellow. So that's why we run so many 1-drops on the deck. And now the ruling for specified cost is if a card would be reduced below its specified cost, it becomes its specified cost regardless.
Yep.
However, Zen-Oh here says this card has no specified cost. So if you manage to put enough of these 1-drops on board, you can start playing Hit for 3 energy, 2 energy, 1 energy, free. And so a card that was kind of okay before becomes pretty good in this deck.
Yep,
and
for
so,
sure.
and sometimes you might play one of these for 1, and then the next one's free, and then the next one, and the next one. And so you can end up playing 4 of these in a turn. I quite often do it.
Which is absolutely insane.
It's a crazy card, because, yeah,
Your
any
leaders-
other deck, it's terrible, it has no protection. In this
Yep.
deck, you just throw them, because they cost you nothing.
Yeah.
It does have also the added bonus that it'll flip your opponent's leader back to its front side, and then it locks them out of using Awaken or Wish skills until the end of their next turn.
Which is huge.
So they go back to their front side for 2 turns, which is crazy. And if you've just thrown 1 down, they then Awaken on your next turn or something, because they want to defend against their third trade. You put another one out,
Yep.
flip them back, and then another one,
Yep.
and another one. So this is the real bread and butter of the deck, because you play a Cabba, and the Cabba then plays a Kale, and then it might add a Hit that you've discarded back to hand. And so for 1 energy, you've played 2 cards, which has reduced Hit's cost by 2.
Yep.
So you very quickly get the 7 cards on board required, and it's very easy.
It's huge, yeah.
Now a card with a similar permanent to Hit is Energetic Frenzy Kefla. I love this card. It's slightly weaker than Hit. It's got essentially unique, and its permanent is reducing its cost by 1, but only per blue card, not blue and or yellow. So it's a little harder to establish. But then it has the activate main, draw 2 cards, and then at the start of your opponent's next main phase, you untap 2 of your blue energy.
Yep. It's huge.
So it's a really, really strong card, and on the occasion you can play one, activate main, swing, combo it off, play another one, activate main. So you can draw 4 cards and then untap 2 on the next turn.
Yeah, yeah.
So this allows you to play around, and it gets around the energy restrictions of this deck, because obviously you can't play things like Sensory Beans. So this
Yep.
gives you a little bit more to work with, because that brings us into our opponent's turn package of the deck. So we have 3 copies of Cabba. Cabba's in there mainly because he's a blue U6. I don't really like him. I didn't end up playing him that much.
Yeah.
Another option, which is probably better for this, is the Roar of Destruction Kefla. Activate battle for 2 energy. You return 2 alien cards to your hand. You can't play cards for the turn, and you play the Kefla.
Yep.
So that allows you to cycle the hits on your opponent's turn.
True.
And then replay the hits on your turn. So in future iterations of the deck, I'm probably going to swap back to Roar of Destruction. But Cabba's just in there as he's a nice bit of disruption. Dual attack, blocker. On your turn, draws 2 cards. On your opponent's turn, it just sends a 4-drop back to the bottom of the deck.
Yep.
Because it doesn't choose, it can get around barrier as well, which is pretty good.
I guess the only downside to Roar is that it's red.
It is red,
Yeah.
but it's colorless to play it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's pretty easy to do, because you'll untap the 2 with this, and
Yeah.
then you can roar off of that.
To get it back
Whereas
out.
I found myself, I wasn't ever really having 3 open for that, and if
Fair
I did
enough.
have 3 open, then I would much rather prefer to play this next card.
Yep, much
Which
better.
is SS2 Kefla Lightning Speed. Amazing card. Double strike blocker. When it's played, it bottom decks any card ignoring barrier. And then limit 1. If your opponent has 3 or more energy, you choose 1 card in my hand and discard it. If it's another copy of Kefla, I draw 2 cards, gain dual attack, and I tap down a card. And then that pairs quite nicely again with Kale.
Yep.
You play the Kale, you add the copy that you discarded back to hand, and you can loop it more and more and more. So that goes really well there. And then some more little tech cards. We have 4 copies of Geen and Martine, Universe 12, Destroyer's Angel. Getting a bit out of control. So this is a counterplay. If the card is energy cost of 5 less, it's negated. And then you play this card. It's got Aegis on it, which is quite nice. You discard a blue-yellow or a blue-yellow multicolor card, and you untap 2 energy, and then when you activate an Aegis skill, you draw 2 cards. And it doesn't state that it's its own Aegis skill as well, so if you have 2 on board and you activate one of them, both would draw 2 cards, which is really strong. And that gives you energy back for counterplay, either another copy of this, or Keflers, Cabbers, whatever you like. It just depends what you're having to work with, but as it does untap 2 only as well, it does make it a little harder to, again, play Cabba.
Yep.
Cabba needs 3.
Where Raw's
Kefla
is
needs
better.
3 as well, so again, you're a lot more synergy with Raw there. The last battle card for the deck is Mauritian Brave Bruiser. We have a lot of blue at this locals, so this is for Boo Unisons, it's for Jiren Unisons. This is a very easily removed and
versatile
replaced card, to be honest. It didn't really get played much, but Double Strike Barrier. Activate main, your opponent reveals the top card of their deck. If it's a battle card, it gains 5k in dual attack. So it's a 4-cost double barrier duel. It's pretty strong, and it's really good against Boo Unisons if they don't have the counterplays for it, and against Jirens as well, because they can't touch it, so it just clears them off. And then the super combo for the deck is the only option we currently have, really, other than the TP Zen-Oh, which is horrendous. So we play this one, which is also pretty bad. It's just Elegant Assistant Helles. If you have 4 or less life, you discard a card, and then if you've discarded a card, you gain the power and you draw 2 cards. So it's pretty bad if it's the last card in your hand, and it's pretty bad if you can't draw cards like your opponent has a yellow slug, but it's the only option you've got, so you run it anyway. And sometimes it's alright, because again, you can discard a high cost U6 and then you can add it back to the KO or something like that. But that's the deck. It's very much a fun deck, but it can catch people by surprise.
Alright, there we go, guys. Before we get going, any shout outs, my man?
Yeah, shout out to the team, PX3. Hopefully you're watching this on our YouTube channel. Shout out to the team Card Titan, who's our sponsor over in the Eastern States. Shout out to Paxton behind the camera for taking the profile. Thanks, guys.
Alright, before we get going as well, please remember to like and subscribe the videos, hit that bell to stay notified, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Peace.